Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and the guy who should be working on Plastic Addict. Incoming random review in 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel, and welcome to another random review, and this is a highly anticipated one that I've been very excited to do. This is 86 Megatron from Studio Series, and this is one that has been hotly anticipated because, well, frankly, it has to be a companion piece to 86 Optimus Prime, which is already considered a definitive edition of the character. So how does Megatron actually follow that up as a leader class scale toy? Well, we got some things to talk about there. So let's get straight into it, shall we? And we'll take a look at what we've got for this Megatron. Tank mode is confirmed. So I'm sorry for everyone who for some reason thought that, 40 years worth of toy laws in this country would suddenly change and he'd be a gun. I'm sorry. It's time to wake up. Join the rest of us in reality. He's not going to be a gun anymore. The tank is the thing. So let's judge it as a tank. And I will say it's definitely better than the previous ones. The one he did for Siege was fine because it was Cybertronian, but the Earthrise one just did not feel as solid as this. This one's putting some more effort into doing basically the same tricks, but it does look pretty good for what it is. So just to clean it up a little bit, there is storage, 5mm, of course, for your weaponry here on the side, as well as a little bit more on the top of the turret. So if you want to arm him up, arm him up the tank, you can do that. But also, he has a 5mm port at the end of the barrel as well. So if you want to give him blast effects, he can be compatible with that. Looking at a cleaner tank, he's definitely got the shapes correct here. I do like the individual wheels and like the individual paint going through all of them, just to make the wheels themselves pop out a little bit more. That's a nice little touch. There's not a whole lot of paint to talk about in this mode. He's mostly just solid gray, just that traditional Megatron gray. And then there are these panels in the back, which we'll talk about once we get to robot mode, because this was the big contention point. Here in the tank mode, they just feel a little bit out of place. You could excuse them as being some additional armor or even like, I don't know, padding for a troop stamina. I don't know. It's definitely not something on a regulation tank, but on a fictional made-up one, I don't mind it too much. It's a little bit odd looking, but not too out of place. And I do like that there is some sculpting attempt here in the back. This is all just stuff that's going to sit underneath his feet in robot mode. You're never going to see any of this sculpted detail, but they at least tried to make it look mechanical in the back so you get that tank vibe a little bit more. No, it does a good job. It's a decent looking tank. I think the contention I have is in the turret itself. Now, it does pivot, but its pivot is closer to the rear, meaning that it's going to have this like really awkward positioning. So, yeah, subtle movements are your friends here. Like, don't make it go too far over the edge, and those positions will look fine. Everything else, yeah, not so much. For me, I think they've done as good of a job as they can creating the shape of the turret. It does at least slope forward the way that you would expect a tank turret to do. But the reality here is that it's going to focus more on getting the robot mode to look as good as possible. And to do that, the turret usually suffers because that's where the arms have to go. So you can see little residual things. The spikes that were the hammer on the original Megatron's robot mode. Well, now they just have to be there, making the turret look a little bit weird. But it is what it is. I think it's cleaned up and a lot more solid than it has been in the past. My grief is with the fact that it just has that gigantic gray cannon in the middle. So yeah, you have to do something with Megatron's arm cannon. Of course, it's going to become part of the tank barrel. but it does stick out a lot because the turret should be solid in color and not have this, what would essentially be like a giant rail gun going all the way through it. Again, fictional tank, but if this is 86 at the very least, it should look a little bit more real world. This is a rare time where I would have been okay with like some extra panels folding over and trying to cover up as much of that gray as possible. It looks just a little bit off. That's all I'm gonna say. I wish there's something to make this look a little bit more solid, and that's pretty much the only grief I'm gonna give it. Beyond that, it does roll. You got the little wheels here, the back. Those are pinned in, so those have some roll to them. But then you also have this big drum roller. So yeah, he'll roll if he's got the surface for it. And beyond that, just it's a nice little tank. It's up to your imagination beyond that. Okay, so we need to get this guy into robot mode. So first off, that's going to come off. He does part form a little bit because what else are you going to do with his accessories otherwise? Fun part, the actual fusion cannon does have a transformation step itself. You need to double hinge this panel in order to create the gap needed to fit in the vehicle mode. So that's a first, I think. Alright, let's get back to this guy. So as long as I've opened up the arms, I'm going to hinge them all out like so. Just give them some space. They will need it later. Getting these into the vehicle mode does require you to turn things at the right time in order to lock everything into place. It takes a little bit of practice, but nothing too complicated here. Should be fine. Go ahead and rotate these out and keep them out to the side because a lot's about to shift around here. All right. I'm going to pop the sides out, fold them all the way around. Now, both sides are going to have a few things to take care of. For starters, this panel in the middle's got to fold down. Otherwise, the next spot is not going to work because we need to open up these side panels in order to get a spot for the feet to go. If I can find the hinge. There we go. So go ahead and fold the tip of the front of the tank in. Open that up same way. Fold in, close up. We go to the back here. Gonna swing all of this forward so we can get all of the legs exposed. And we can start transforming these as well. Go ahead and flip all this up. Flip up the toes. Deal with that in a minute. Stretch all of this out. Alright, go ahead and hinge everything around because all this is going to fold up into the legs. Now, going to go out around to the rear so you can see what's going on here. With this folded up, we can double hinge all of these treads together. Then make sure this is forward a little bit because you're going to have to tab this in first to form the leg. And then tab that to the back. And tab the front in. Then double hinge the foot into place. Go ahead and repeat that on this side. It's a nice, like, solid chunk section of transformation. Everything goes together pretty solid if the QC on yours is pretty good. Mine has a little bit of a wonkiness to it. Like, there's a little bit of the leg that doesn't want to completely close up sometimes. Yeah, it's some little positioning here and there that's not going to quite fit, but everything still fits together pretty solidly. This is just me doing it quickly, so it's not going to cooperate. But it's not going to affect the robot mode for the sake of this review, so we should be fine. Also, these panels will clip into the thighs. Go ahead and rotate them out like that. Fold them over. And then rotate all this down. That's going to be the lower half of Megatron complete. Go ahead and rotate this around so we can start getting the robot mode together. This piece has to fold in. And that's going to give you the chest. Before we do that, raise up the head, close the chest together, clip there, and flip the belly piece up. That'll lock all of that into place. Now, all this gets to fold in. If I can remember which direction this all goes offhand without looking it up. All these hinges have to be outward like that in order to actually get this connected, because you're going to have to double hinge them into place once everything is connected correctly. Go ahead and fold the entire back down. Now, just work the double hinges until this little tab gets inside the chest like that. Might take a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit of force when everything's in the right spot. Helps if the arms are pointed backwards. Go ahead and make sure all that's tight. And with that, we just have to finish with the arms. So, go ahead and open them up. It's a pair of shells like that. Rotate those 180 degrees. Flip the hands out. Close them back up. And just like that, it looks like the arms got extended, even though all we did was switch a panel around. Neat little trick. All right, go ahead and do that again on this side. Make sure it's the flat side you're trying to rotate. Won't go the other way. Close that up again. And that's pretty much it. We just need a few finishing touches here. For starters, that fusion cannon's got to go onto his right arm, as it always does. And then that little gun barrel needs to go onto the back. Make sure the iron sight is pointed backwards if you want to be completely accurate. And that is Megatron fully transformed. It's a fun, satisfying transformation. It's intuitive. It's clean. It's got a lot of little tricks to it I actually really, really like. I was worried about how this guy would transform given how much of the tank mode was just in those leg treads, but it all works really, really well. Like, it's all a really clean, effective transformation, and I genuinely have fun doing it, which I think that's a pretty good accomplishment for a toy with some very, very high expectations behind it. All right. That said, we can take a look around, 180 degree rotation here, so you can see it's, you know my favorite word. You know my favorite word when it comes to things like this, and it is exactly that. It is clean. It is very clean. There's no backpack. Like, this is not Siege Megatron. There is not a huge backpack hanging off of him. They really didn't have to do much to hide anything. I think this is where I wish there was a little bit more kibble in the turret just to hide the fusion cannon a little bit more. Because they did so much to hide kibble in this mode, I think I would be okay with a little hanging off if it improved the tank at all. Yeah, as far as kibble goes, all we have really is just the back side of the ankles. That's pretty much it. Like, they probably could have folded these up or something to hide more of the tread, but it's kind of unnecessary at this point. It's just very, very well done. So, we get the close-up. The head sculpt is really, really nice. The initial photos made the head look a little bit too tall, but in person, I think this is pretty spot on. I really, really like how it's done. And the really bright red of the eyes pops really nicely in the light. I like this a lot. Yeah, this just feels correct. This just feels like the Megatron I've needed. All right. In the midsection, we do have the detailing that I was hoping to see, aside from just, Decepticon symbol trimmed in silver. You got those little buttons and diodes that are painted on him to give him that look. The sides of his midsection are done in red, so are the biceps as well. So you have a little bit of that detail going on. Very, very nice there. All right. Let us talk about it. So, in the lead up to this toy's release, the big thing was, how were the legs going to look? Some photos made them look solid gray, others made them look blue. As you see on this camera shot right now, I would call them gray with a slight hint of blue. It's not enough for me to go, well, if they release him with solid gray legs later on, I'm absolutely buying him for an upgrade. No, I think that's unnecessary in this case. It's not enough to distract me. I don't know about you, but I think it looks fine. This just happens to be a blue that in certain lighting, in certain cameras, is going to get picked up as more blue than gray. And that's just how some cameras work, and there's no real avoiding that. Here on my review stage, I try to keep the lighting as neutral as I can. I'm trying to give you like a real-world representation of it. I'm trying to not have to color correct once I get this to the editor. But yeah, for me, personally, I can see the little bit of blue, but I think the gray outweighs it enough for me to not really care, honestly. Yeah, beyond that, yeah, everything is just really, really solid on the toy. Everything's sculpted really nicely. The details are all correct. The proportions are nice. My one grievance with the proportions, I think, is just like I might be okay with the upper arms being a little bit thicker. And I think that's really it. I think that's literally the only complaint I can levy against this whole thing. This has been a fantastic experience. Now, articulation rundown with a weird jump cut because I totally didn't just bump the camera by accident. So, he does have a head that is fully ball jointed, so it can look 360 degrees as well as have some up and down motion as well. We have universal shoulders. They work exactly as I was hoping. The little shoulder spike gets in the way a little bit. It's really only when I have his arm outward like this. It's clipping into the back a little bit. That's a pretty rare, and I'm not going to extend him any farther than this. Megatron does not have to T-pose for dominance. You'll also, in this angle, see the only part of him that looks hollowed out, which is the inside of his bicep. Yeah, and that's minor. that's minor. That's literally the only hollowing I can find on the whole toy. Beyond that, okay, we have a bicep rotation that is 360 degrees. You have an elbow joint that's, beyond the 90. Always like to see that. You do have wrist rotation, and you do have finger articulation. It's a little bit hard to get to because the thumb is solid. It's in the way. But the index finger, there you go. The index finger is individually knuckled and hinged twice over, and then the rest of the fingers are likewise hinged at the knuckles. So, yeah, it's got a lot of nice little articulation there. That's the kind of stuff you'd expect from one of these leader class figures that are a little bit smaller. And we'll get into that here in a minute. Waist rotation, 360 degrees. Thighs or the hips rather, are universally jointed. He doesn't have a hip skirt, aside from what's on the side here. So it's just the whole piece that's rotating around. But there is enough of a waist piece above it to where it doesn't look distracting like it does on other figures that do this for their hip articulation. I still prefer a hip skirt personally, but this is not a bad attempt at this particular take on it. Thighs, 360 degree rotation. Knees are just beyond the 90. Just a little bit beyond, just for those who just need it. And then, of course, you do have the ankle tilt that works pretty well. You also have a little bit of forward and back. Remember, that whole thing is on a hinge, so you can just, completely angle it forward if you want some, ridiculously knee-bent pose. You can do that, too. So, I got pretty much what I needed to out of a modern Megatron toy here, right? He is absolutely well articulated, well designed, well transformed, well engineered. Yeah, this thing is just nailing everything. Now, we're not quite done. So we do have a couple things to talk about. We do have a little bit of accessory to get to. So for starters, he does come with his energy sword. Now, this is a missed opportunity because I feel like the blade here should be on a 5mm peg so I can use it as an effect part in the cannon. I feel like that is a very obvious trick that was missed. But as it is, it's, it's the energy sword he just randomly had during the fight to battle Optimus with. And if 86 Optimus Prime gets an energy weapon, I guess it's fair that Megatron gets one as well. So, he gets... Yes, can I pop this off to get this in any smoother? No, I cannot. So yeah, he gets his sword. Like so. So, yeah, you can slash through Optimus Prime's gut if you want. And then he comes with the fun accessory, which is, I guess, the consolation for him being a tank. He gets himself. He gets himself in gun mode. Now, I will be honest, there's that tab of unpainted plastic at the top, which tells me it's supposed to peg into somewhere. I couldn't find anywhere for it to peg, unless this is just storage on the back of him or something. But no, it's a fun little inclusion. Though it's not really right for Megatron to hold on to it, so I need something else in here. I guess as good as time as any to bring out the comparison. So, toy-wise, yeah, Prime's a little bit denser. Definitely the heavier toy, because there is a lot more complex engineering going on in there. He does have a vehicle mode we have to stick to, unlike Megatron, who we just made up. But yeah, you can see they scale pretty much exactly the way you would want. Megatron just being slightly taller than Optimus, which is what they generally go for. But yeah, the gun accessory looks pretty good in Optimus or Starscream's hand. Hang on, if you happen to have one in the collection, autofocus, please, autofocus hates this toy. Yeah, it's a fun thing to include. I love that they thought to do that as an accessory. That way you still get the 86 appearance, Like, I can throw this in Starscream's hand, and that's just going to be the shuttle scene from the 86 movie. That's fantastic. So, really, really smart idea. Really, really smart of them to do. If we want other quick little size comparisons, just so we can just get everything out of the way, I did have someone ask if I could pose it next to Earthrise Optimus Prime because they didn't feel like upgrading to the 86 version. And that's fair. 86 is a $90 upgrade. I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that. But I will compare it here to the Siege Megatron, specifically the 35th anniversary version. And you can see just how much taller he is. He's about a head taller than the previous Voyager toys. So if you do still have that Earthspark or the Siege version of Prime, yeah, Megatron's going to be about a head taller than either of them, which is going to be a little bit distracting. You can, obviously, stick to whichever version of Prime you like, but I do really feel like it is designed to go hand in hand with the 86 figure. So, yeah, just in case you were wondering. That does bring up a scale issue here, because obviously this is a $35 toy. This is a $55 or $60 toy, depending on where you go right now. And while I do think it's worth it, because it's a fantastic toy, it is weird when you get that toy in box and you just look at it and go, like, I could fit another one in this box. Because it's also got to be big enough to store things like the G2 Grimlock that was released in the same size box. And that's just because, like, that toy is made to be big and it's kind of hollowed out. This toy is dense. Like, if I pick him up by the legs, he just feels heavy. Because all of that part count is going into making, like, a really involved and really nice and fun transformation. And just making sure that this could feel like this without having to go to a commander price point. So this is definitely one of those, like, you're paying the price for the quality of the toy rather than the size of the toy. And I feel like in the last few years, they've gotten us more and more accustomed to that. This was just where I feel it a lot more. But that said, I did mention that it is worth the price because this is immediately one of my favorite toys of the year. They did an outstanding job. They went for a mini masterpiece and they got it. They got what could be a near perfect iteration of a tank Megatron. It still looks like G1 Megatron when he needs to. So That's all I can say. I've said everything there is. It's a phenomenal toy. Absolutely phenomenal toy. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope this helped out someone out there who might have been on the fence on an expensive toy. And as always, it's always appreciated. Thank you very much. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.